Now look at this question. It says, when animal cells and plant cells are placed in distilled water, the animal cells burst but the plant cells do not. Which statement explains this difference? And the correct answer is D. The cell wall of plant cells resists turgor pressure. Plant cells do not burst in distilled water because their rigid cell wall prevents excessive expansion, whereas animal cells lack a cell wall and burst due to osmotic pressure. Then in the next question, we have a diagram showing concentration of magnesium ions in root hair cell as 5 moles per cubic decimeter and in soil water as 3 moles per cubic decimeter. This diagram shows the concentration of magnesium ions in a root hair cell of a healthy plant and in the soil water surrounding the root hair cell. And the plant continuously uses up magnesium ions. The question is, for the plant to remain healthy, how will the magnesium ions move? And the answer is A. Into the cell by active transport. The concentration of magnesium ions is higher inside the root hair cell, which is 5 moles per cubic decimeter, than in the soil water, which is 3 moles per cubic decimeter. Since substances move from a lower concentration to a higher concentration against the concentration gradient, active transport, which requires energy, is needed. Next question says, the cell wall of a plant cell is removed using enzyme. What would happen if this cell is then placed into a distilled water? And the correct answer is D, that the cell wall will burst if water moves into it. This happens because distilled water is hypertonic, causing water to enter the cell via osmosis. Normally, a plant cell's rigid wall prevents excessive swelling, but, without it, the cell can't withstand the pressure and eventually bursts, similar to an animal cell. The lack of a cell wall is the key reason for this rupture. The next question asks, which row correctly identifies how ions and molecules move by active transport? And the correct answer is A, because active transport moves ions or molecules against their concentration gradient, from low to high concentration. It requires energy, typically ATP. This process occurs through a membrane using specialized transport proteins. Then, we have another question here. The diagram illustrates an experiment in which a starch suspension, enclosed within a semi-permeable membrane, is immersed in a beaker containing an iodine solution. One side of the membrane holds the starch suspension, while the other side contains the iodine solution. As time passes, the starch suspension turns blue-black. What explains this color change? And the correct answer is A. Iodine has diffused in through the membrane. Because iodine solution is brown, while starch suspension is initially white. When iodine contacts starch, it forms a blue-black complex. The color change occurs as iodine diffuses through the membrane, while starch remains inside due to its larger size. This confirms that iodine moved into the starch suspension, making it the correct choice. Next, let's analyze this question. Here, the table provided shows the relative concentrations of two mineral ions, magnesium and nitrate, inside a root cell and in the surrounding soil water. The concentration of both ions is significantly higher inside the root cell than in the soil. This raises the question, what does the plant root need to increase the concentration of these mineral ions in its cells? The correct answer is A. Energy for active transport. Active transport moves substances against their concentration gradient, from low to high concentration, for example, from soil to root cells. This process requires ATP since it opposes natural diffusion. Specialized transport proteins in the root cell membrane use ATP to pump ions into the cell, enabling nutrient absorption. Osmosis, which moves water, does not transport mineral ions, ruling out options B and D. Hence, active transport is the correct answer.